What I would like to share with you today as we wrap up 2022 is I'd like to share with you some of my lessons learned in 2022. I spent some time this morning making a list of 10 things that really have, I guess, been defining moments or lessons for me. I think it's really important as a business owner that you're constantly reflecting on what have you learned in your business over the course of the past year. Because if you're getting to January and nothing's changed since January of last year, then there's a chance that you probably need a coach or you need a program or you need to do something to change things up, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting to get a different result. If you want different results, you have to do things differently. So let's get into this list. I want to share this with you, and I hope that you will be able to see yourself in some of these learnings as well. So lesson number 1, inspect what you expect. This has been a theme that I have been discussing with my team, my leadership team, all year long. It's not good enough to assume that somebody has done what you expect them to do. If you want to ensure that things are running the way they should be in your business, you need to inspect what you expect, and you need to do it regularly. That doesn't mean that you need to micromanage. There's a difference between inspecting what you expect and micromanagement. Micromanagement is hovering. It's nitpicking on every single detail, on every single thing that somebody does. It's all consuming. Inspecting what you expect, though, is, it's inspecting. It's checking to see if things are being done the way you want them to be done periodically, from time to time, actually looking, especially when you're teaching somebody to do something new. One of the biggest mistakes leaders make is they ask this question: does that make sense? Do you understand what I mean? And somebody will look at them and nod their head. Yeah. That doesn't tell you anything. That doesn't tell you that their understanding is the same as what you wanted them to understand. Checking for understanding means tell me what I need you to do. Explain it back to me so that I know my communication was clear. Well, it's the same thing when you think about inspecting what you expect. If you're not actually getting into the weeds from time to time to look at what you've asked people to do, especially when it's something new, you have no way of knowing if they're doing what you expect them to do until something blows up. And when something blows up, it's never fun. And if you have a little bit of perfectionism in you, like I do, when things go sideways, it's not fun and it can feel really, really difficult and hard. So get into the habit of inspecting what you expect on a regular basis and prioritize the new things that you expect people to do because they're doing them for the first time. So there is a high probability that if they're doing something for the very first time, they may not do it exactly the way you wanted them to. So if you inspect early on, you can set the course for them to continue to do things well. And if you inspect early on and they did do it right, you've just created an opportunity to praise. So lesson number 1, inspect what you expect regularly. There are some places in my business where I have failed to do this and my team has failed to do this, and we're learning lessons from that. It's probably my biggest lesson of 2022 is inspect what you expect more. All right, number 2, complexity can ruin your business. Keep things as simple as possible in your business. One of the lessons that I've learned this year is I came from a Fortune 50 company. That's my corporate background. I managed a $100 million sales team. And so there was a certain level of complexity working for this massive organization that you cannot and should not replicate in your small business. A small business needs to be agile. It needs to operate smoothly. The more you complexify processes, the more people you involve in getting things done, the harder it will be for you to do things, A, on budget, B, on time, and C, without mistakes. So be constantly looking for ways to simplify how you do things in your business so that your team members can meet your expectations and your business can perform within its operating budget. When you make processes too complex, what you do is you actually demoralize your team to a certain degree. You make the process more important than the outcome. And that's not what you want in the business. You want your processes to be simple. You want complexity to be removed from everything so that people are super clear on what needs to be done. And it's easy for them to do that work for you. So keep your eyes open for complexity, look for it everywhere, and be really, really diligent about getting rid of it whenever you can. It can harm your business. Number 3, changing your strategy is often better than just trying harder. If you're trying harder at a strategy that doesn't work, it's not going to work just because you tried harder. So you have to be able to step back and look at your strategies and ask yourself, is it working or not? And be willing to change course. This year, I decided to do something radically different. For the last 5 years, I have run a business book club called Thought Readers, and people have paid $1,200 a year to be part of that book club. And I've shipped them a book a month to be a member of that book club. And in 2023, that business book club is going to be free. Yes, go to thoughtreaders.com right now and register to read with me for 2023 for free. Why did I make this significant change? I made this significant change because I wanted to make it easier for people to access the information and learning and the passion and love that I have for books. And I wanted to remove the labor intensity that my team is experiencing by having to ship books to people every single month, having to follow up on payments, having to schedule, author calls, having to schedule calls for me to do with the groups. I wanted to simplify it and create an opportunity for me to build a larger community with no barrier to entry called price, where I can offer additional programs if I want to people in that community who want to go deeper on certain books. What I have found is over the last 5 years, while we had some members of Thought Readers who have been with us from the very, very beginning, some people dropped out. And some people felt like they weren't getting value because they didn't read all the books. I think that's kind of crazy because one book can change the course of your life and business. So who cares if you read all 12? But if you're attaching the investment in the book to the value that you get from the program, you're missing the point. So I want to remove the objection. I want to change my strategy in terms of how I run this program and open it up to people. I received a really interesting email from someone after I did that, and they thanked me. You know what they thanked me for? They thanked me for modeling when to make decisions that are in the best interest of the business versus decisions that are hinged on protecting revenue. Because I've given up revenue. We've had anywhere from 40 to 75 people a year in Thought Readers. So that's, $75,000 a year. That's not a lot of money. But I've decided that I want to take it in a different direction. I want to try something new because the old strategy isn't working the way that I wanted it to. So if I just tried harder on the old strategy, it's not necessarily going to work. So I want you to ask yourself, where are you just trying harder instead of trying different? Because maybe if you start to try different, you'll get different results. And if you're not someone who reads on a regular basis, one of the things that you should do differently in 2023 is you should read with me. Go to thoughtreaders.com and register for free today and start reading with me on the 8th of January. That's when we kick off our first book. And our first book is actually called Smart Brevity. This is the book if you're watching the video. And this book is fantastic. It is about the power of saying more with less, which I think we can all learn to do. All right. Number 4, square pegs don't fit in round holes without having to break something. All right. This lesson is really about people. And it's a hard lesson because when you love people, when you like people and you really want to help them and you want them to be the best they can be in a role, sometimes you want it more than they do. And sometimes you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. As a business owner and leader, you have to pay attention to when things are not the right fit and do something about it. Help people gracefully exit your organization if they're not the right fit. I do a lot of teaching on willing and able. And I have this quadrant that I basically show, you're willing and able, you're willing and unable, you're unwilling and able, you're unwilling and unable. Well, we all know if you're unwilling and unable, it's a no. You shouldn't work for an organization, right? But what about when you're willing and unable? Or what about when you're unwilling and able? What do we do in those situations? Those are your square pegs. It's when people either lack the ability or they lack the willingness to do what you hired them to do. And if after training and supporting people on ability, they still demonstrate that they're unwilling or unable, it's time to move on. It's time to hire the right fit, as Stephanie Rainey would say, instead of trying to make that square peg fit in a round hole. I have been guilty of letting square pegs hang around for too long and trying to force them into that round hole, which is not fair to them. So if you have people inside of your organization that are square pegs and you're trying to cram them into a round hole, guess what? It's not comfortable for them either. As a leader, you need to make some tough decisions, and you need to set some standards and guidelines for yourself when it comes to hiring and onboarding new people so that you can make those decisions faster in the future. Because the slower you are to act on square pegs and round holes, the more it will ultimately cost you in your business. All right. Number 5, scope seep and scope creep will kill your profits. All right, let's talk about it. I read a thing that Alan Weiss wrote, and he said scope creep is when your client expands the scope to include things that they didn't pay for. Scope seep is when your team expands the scope to include things the client didn't pay for. I talked earlier about complexity. Scope seep is the result of unnecessary complexity. It's when you take processes and you bloat them. You make them bigger than they need to be. You add just one more thing, just one more thing, just one more thing. And you do that every month for 12 months. And all of a sudden you have 12 other things that you're doing that weren't part of the original scope. That's not your client's fault. That's your fault. Now, it's also your fault if every time your client asks for something else, you just say yes because you have the disease, please. And you don't talk about fee. You don't talk about the fact that this is outside of scope, and you don't ask them how they would like to pay for that thing. Don't get angry at your clients when they want more. Most of them don't expect you to do it for free. Most of them expect to pay for the thing they're asking for. When you go to a steak restaurant and you ask for a side of peppercorn sauce to go with your steak, do you expect them to go back in the kitchen and make that up and bring it to you for free? No, you expect them to charge you. But typically what the server says is, yes, no problem. I can bring you a side of peppercorn. There's an additional charge for that. Is that okay? And you look at the waiter and say, yes, because I want the peppercorn sauce. If you're worried about the charge, you're like, how much? Normally it's not a lot, but if you're not worried about the cost, you just say, okay, yeah, I expect there to be a cost. But in a service-based business, we often go, okay. And then we get resentful because we've allowed our clients to creep, when really problem is you, because you haven't said anything about the creeping. So make sure inside of your organization that your scope is well defined. You know when you're going to go above and beyond because that's just what you want to do. And you know where the line and the limitations are in terms of bloating your own processes and letting your clients know when there's going to be an additional cost. If you don't pay attention to this and you've done the work on pricing for profit and the work of pricing to ensure that you have healthy profit margins, you'll get to the end of the year and your margins will be eroded and you won't understand why. So these are two things, and they're both your responsibility, managing creep and managing seep. And if you don't do both well, you'll pay for it. You will literally pay for it. You'll pay for it with your profits, whether you want to or not, because creep and seep cost money. Number 6, in-person events really matter. I know we've all been on this COVID hiatus for the last 3 years, and I want you to get back out into in-person events. Getting into a room with like-minded people is so important. Getting face-to-face, eye-to-eye, belly-to-belly, heart-to-heart with other people and having those experiences matters. Stop hiding behind your Zoom screen and get out and engage with people in real life. You will feel invigorated. You will feel re-inspired. You'll feel motivated to do new things. You'll expand your network by meeting new people. And all in all, you need to step away from your business from time to time in order to work on the business. And I don't believe you can step away from your business if you're just attending something on Zoom and in between whatever's going on Zoom, you're checking email and you're checking Facebook and you're checking Instagram. You need to show up in person and be present to the learning and present to the relationship building and the experience. So get out to more in-person events this year. I showed up at a bunch of in-person events this year. I showed up at 2 of Ali Brown's events. I showed up at an event with Alan. And I got to tell you, 3 wasn't enough. I have in-person events on my calendar 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 8 times, if not 10 times next year. And they're already scheduled and marked in. So figure out what in-person events you want to go to. And I'm hosting my own in 2023. So if you want to come to one of my events, email me, lisa@lisalarter.com, and I'll make sure you know when they are. I am planning one in February in Florida. So if you live someplace cold, you may want to come to that one. All right. Number 7, if you're not committed to learning and growth, you will fall behind. I talked about this at the very beginning. Who you are today shouldn't be the same person as you were a year ago. In order for you to be competitive in the marketplace, you've got to constantly be learning, growing, and changing. You know, one of the things that I read in a book that we just finished in Thought Readers called Mindset by Carol Dweck. Let me find the page because it was really, really, really good. So a growth mindset is about believing people can develop their abilities. It's that simple. It can have many repercussions, but that's what it is at its core. The process we want people to appreciate is hard work, trying new strategies, and seeking input from others. If you are not constantly learning and growing and seeking input from others, you're staying the same. And if you're staying the same and your competitor, the other option to you is doing hard work, they're learning, they're getting input, they're growing, then guess what? They become better than you, even if you have had a competitive advantage. You will lose your competitive advantage if you do not stay committed to the growth of learning. That's why I read anywhere from 1 to 3 books a month. People say, how do you find time? Guess what? I don't find time to learn. I make time to learn because it's important. I know that every single time I read a book, attend a workshop, complete an online program, I am learning things that I can pass on to my clients. That makes me a better business advisor because I'm invested in learning. When you invest in learning, you become better at whatever you do in your business, to your clients, to your team, and to even your personal relationships. So don't underestimate the power of continuous ongoing learning if you are the owner and or founder of a business. It matters a lot. Number 8, trust your instincts when it comes to your numbers, but make sure you know your numbers. All right. I had a little something happen in my business over the last year where I was like, the numbers don't make sense to me. The numbers don't make sense to me. The numbers don't make sense to me. Something is not right here. I need to figure out what it is. My instincts told me something was wrong, but I wouldn't have had those instincts if I didn't have reporting to look at. And sure enough, when I dug into the reporting, that's when I identified some of the scope seep and some of the bloated hiring decisions we had made in the business. And I was able to course correct. But if you don't have numbers to look at, then your intuition can't tap in and tell you something doesn't make sense with these numbers. So we're at the end of 2022. If you don't track your numbers, I want to implore you to do these 3 things in 2023. Track your sales numbers every single week so that you know where you're at month to date and year to date every week without fail. Have some type of weekly reporting so you know where things are at. Number 2, have a conversation with your bookkeeper or accountant and ensure that they get you your monthly bookkeeping reports by the 15th of the following month, every month without fail. And that means you need to get them whatever they need to do this. You should be looking at number 3, your profit and loss statement and your balance sheet every month. You should be looking at your P&L for the month in comparison to the same month last year. And you should be looking at year to date in comparison to year to date last year. That's how you run your business and get intimate with these numbers. If you're waiting until the end of a quarter, or you're waiting until the end of the year for your accountant or bookkeeper to tell you how you're doing, you waited too long. You waited too long. You were not able to course correct. If I didn't have these reports, I wouldn't have known midway through the year something wasn't right and been able to make decisions in my business to course correct. When you have the numbers provided to you on a monthly basis, you can pay attention to trends. You can pay attention to variances. Why am I up in this category in comparison to last year? You can drill down and understand what's going on with the numbers. And then as a leader, you can make decisions to change things in your business that will alter the outcome of the financials by the end of the year. So don't leave it till the end of the year. And don't think that your instincts or your gut will lead you if you don't actually have reporting to look at. It's super, super important to have in your business. And it's important to be consistent about it. And it's important when those numbers don't make sense that you drill down and ask a lot of questions, really inquire to understand what's going on in your business so you can make changes. All right, number 9. You need to surround yourself with big thinkers to change your frame of reference and see what is possible. So I just renewed my annual membership in the Trust, Ali Brown's network for 7 and 8 figure business owners. And, that membership is, I don't know, I think I pay 10,000 US a year to be part of it. Other people joined. I was a founding member, so I have a preferred rate. But let's say it's 12 to 15,000 a year. I actually don't know what it is for new members. It's worth every penny. Do you know why? Because when you walk into that room, you're not the biggest fish in the room. There are other people in the room running bigger businesses than you. And there are other people that maybe are running businesses the same size as you, but their profits are bigger than you. I remember when Jerisha, and I'm not telling stories out of school because she talked about it on my podcast, Jerisha Hawk. If you haven't listened to that episode, you may want to. When she said at one of our meetings this year that she generated $1 million in profit, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, girl, how did you do that? I was so inspired. She changed my thinking. Who cares about a 7-figure business when you can have 7 figures of profit? When you surround yourself with people that are dreamers and doers and they're doing big things, you are inspired to do what you see them doing. And when you build relationships with those people, you see that they're not really that different from you. And you can borrow ideas and inspiration from them. And they're happy to share and help you. So find your community. That's what I love about the Strategy Lab, the community that I lead. People, we meet twice a month. We have breakout sessions where people learn from each other. We have member-led labs, and it's such a rich environment for learning the skills, but also learning what is possible from a group of peers. So surround yourself with people that are doing big things. Surround yourself with people that are thinking not exactly the same as you, but different from you so that you can expand your thinking. And more importantly, surround yourself with these people so that you can build long-lasting relationships with them. Was it Jim Rohn who said you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with? Well, if you think about the 5 people you spend the most time with right now, I'm going to guess that some of those people are not entrepreneurial and they don't have a shared vision that you have for your business. They don't understand what it's like to be an entrepreneur. They think you work too hard and that your big, lofty ideas are crazy. Those people are not going to help you reach those goals. I'm not saying that you shouldn't spend time with them, but you need to change the score so that 100% of the 5 people you spend the most time around are not all the same. Get in rooms with people that think like you and think bigger than you so that you can learn by osmosis. You can be inspired by what they do. It's really, really, really important. All right. Number 10, you can do hard things if you have a little bit of support. So I told you I unearthed a little something in my business this year, and I knew I needed help operationally. And I knew I needed help with streamlining our processes and making things better. And so I actually engaged the services of Stephanie Allen and asked her to help me because she is an operational genius. And not only has she helped us really refine our operations and how we do things and to think differently, she's guided our leadership team in terms of communication. She has been an advisor to me in terms of some of the hard decisions I need to make or needed to make in the business. And it's been really invaluable to me. So I want you to know that my lesson and the lesson for you is you can do hard things, but you don't have to do hard things alone. There are people out there that you can hire to help you. So if you've got this thing going on in your mind that you really want to do, but you're not sure how to do it, it feels really hard, it feels overwhelming, and it feels insurmountable, find your person that will help you. Find somebody that will role play or talk through it or give you guidance or give you alternative scenarios that you could consider to do the hard thing that you want to do. But you were made to do hard things if you're an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship isn't easy. It's constantly changing. There's ups and downs, and you go 3 feet forward and all of a sudden you're 5 feet back and you feel like you're a big failure, but really you're not, because 5 feet back, you're still starting ahead of where you were when you were 5 feet back. So entrepreneurship is not easy. It's hard. And sometimes you need to find the right people to help you through the hard times. And if you are coming out of a season of hard, if 2020, 2021, and 22 has been hard for you because of COVID, then I challenge you to ask yourself, what do I need to do differently in 2023 to make it a great year? You know, there's lots of doom and gloom in the media, inflation and interest rates and this, that, and the other thing. You can listen to all that and use it as an excuse to underperform for another year, or you can decide I was built to do hard things and I'm going to do hard things and I'm going to find somebody to help me do hard things next year. And I am going to control the outcomes in my business. And I think it's really important. We all need somebody to help us. And that's why I love doing what I do so much. I love strategy and I love advising my clients and I love holding their hands as they step up and do hard things. And then I love watching them transform into people who believe that they can do hard things and create incredible results for themselves in their business. So that's what I got for you. 10 things. And I think they're valuable things. They were valuable for me. I hope they're valuable for you. As we wrap up, there's a couple of things that I want to say here. You know, I want to say thank you to those people who have written reviews this year. I have a review here from GTRGA. I'm not sure who this is. It's actually Shisha. And this is the review. I heard about Lisa from an interview she did with Allie Brown, who I've followed for years. Allie has been out of my reach as I'm not at 7 figures. I found Lisa very relatable so down to earth. Her podcasts have been so inspiring and practical. Her solo episodes where she broke down strategy were fantastic. I was so inspired that I went to her website and signed up for her free program, The Pilot Project. When my business grows up, I will be able to afford to work with her one-on-one. Chisha from Zambia in South Africa. So I got to tell you, it makes me so happy to read that. When I receive emails and reviews and messages from people all over the world telling me that they listen to She Talks Business, it inspires me to keep recording these episodes. So we just recorded episode 91, and guess what? We're just getting started. Next season on She Talks Business, I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive into books. I just told you I've been running Thought Readers for 5 years, which means we've read 60 books over the last 5 years. My goal is to actually have some conversations with you about some of the books that we have read and some of the lessons and learning that I've taken away from some of those books so that you can learn. And my hope is that by listening to some of these episodes, A, you will learn some really great things. B, you will decide to join us in Thought Readers, where you can read these books and participate in the conversations that we're having every single month and add your 2 cents and your insights and value. Remember, reading isn't about information. It's about insights. It's not about the information. It's about what you do with it. And when you read a book and you read it with a group of people, you get powerful insights that you may not have got all by yourself. So I hope you will join us. And because this is the last episode of 2022, I just want to say thank you for being a listener, and I want to wish you the most fabulous 2023. I hope 2023 is a wonderful year filled with good health, prosperity, and I hope you do hard things that make you proud. I hope a year from now you can look back and say, I am not the same person, and I am proud of the person I have become. Thanks for listening to She Talks Business, and we'll see you next time.